This is what I gotta do. I don't care what you say.
You're putting shoes on.
Because if my feet go back, you guys. It sucks. Kidding, buddy.
All right. Put on shoes for the video.
Uh-huh. I hate this already.
Okay, it's November 1st, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And you have been sentenced to 3.5 years in federal prison beginning November 29th, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we start with, what were you convicted of?
I was convicted of conspiracy mail fraud. It was a telemarketing business, and we sold maintenance and janitorial supplies to businesses all over the country.
And how did you get involved with that job?
When I was 21, I was fresh out of treatment.
So when you say treatment, you were starting sobriety,
Recovery. Yes. I had just gotten clean. I met someone in the meetings that I go to.
like NAAA.
NA. And the person had a telemarketing room and said, "Hey, you need a job?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't have a job right now, and I'm just kind of happy to be alive and like actually feeling feelings for the first time since I was like 11 years old." I didn't really think much about it. I just went up the street because it was close to where I was living at the time, and I started working there. And the intrigue was I could make a decent salary and work with people in recovery. I didn't look at it like, hey, I'm going to be working here for a really long time.
Yeah, it was like a transitional
It was
job.
like a transitional thing.
And it was your first job since you had gotten clean.
Yeah.
In the beginning, did you feel like you were doing something that was wrong?
I always just thought of it as like telemarketing. Like it's how you would view a used car salesman, that's how I viewed it. But I wasn't even like in the sales part of it for years. Like I was kind of like an office dude, you know, like I was kind of like my boss's assistant, just kind of doing like real menial tasks. Like, I mean, there was a point where I was just like cleaning the office. Like I was just doing whatever.
And you were still making the same salary?
I wasn't making much. I mean, at the time it was everything because I hadn't really worked. You know, I was like a using drug addict for a really long time. So I was, everything at that point was like
a step up from where you were.
A step up from where I was. At no point in the 10 years that I worked there did I ever have enough money where I was just like carelessly buying things. You know, I was still kind of living paycheck to paycheck. My like most fancy things was I had like a decent car, and I didn't even get my license until like 5 or 6 years after I worked there. Like I was just taking the train and shit to work for a really long time. Where I grew up, like when I got clean, I had never eaten sushi. Like I never had like a cell phone. I don't need to be in the nicest car. I don't need to be in the biggest house. Like I don't need to like ride around with people in the nicest cars. Like it's never been my thing. It's never been my thing. I do like to look clean. And then sometimes that might be like a $60 pair of Reeboks or like $100 fucking raincoat that I'm wearing in a place that never rains. But yeah, that's the extent of my lavish life, I think.
How old were you when you had your daughter?
I was 27.
And you worked at that job for how many years?
For almost 10.
10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like as you continued to work there, it felt unethical or shady, or did it just pretty much feel like just like another job?
I knew it was like a weird place to work, but less because of the ethical nature of it, more just because the things that were allowed to take place there.
Like what? Getting paid under the table?
No. Actually, see, that was like the thing. Like none of that really happened. You know what I mean? Like we always had like a paycheck. Like I had an IRA. Like I had paid for insurance. It was like a very normal situation.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't
like it seemed legally
they weren't like handing
sound.
us cash. It wasn't like that, but it was like, especially in the earlier days when the business was a lot smaller, there were a lot of using addicts still, so there were people be shooting up in the bathroom. It was like it was an unhealthy atmosphere. I got to see where I didn't want to be anymore, but then also I had like people that I was going to meetings with that worked there as well.
And you stayed clean the whole time you were there, right?
The whole time.
So did you ever anticipate that you would do jail time for working there?
Absolutely not. I never walked in, and I've told this to people for 4 years now. Is I never walked in that business and once thought that this was ever around, like in the realm of my possibilities.
Has it registered now that you are going to jail? Does it feel like reality that you're actually going to jail?
It does. And for a long time, so like the FTC came in and shut the business down in 2014.
The Federal Trade Commission.
Federal Trade Commission came down, said that basically what they do is they go, hey, what you guys are doing is fraudulent. So we're going to sue the owners. At that point in time, it was like, hey, you owners, you come over here, everyone else go home. And it was obviously a pretty scary moment because there was like 60 cops there, and it was just like insane. A year later, the Federal Trade Commission decided to add people to their list of people that they were going to sue, like for the civil suit. And basically then they start suing employees. Since I worked there for a long time, I just assumed at some point they were going to come talk to me.
Yeah.
That following year, summer of 2015, they added a few of us to the FTC case, which basically means they were deciding to sue us as well. Okay. So I didn't have anything. They saw that after doing extensive research.
You mean like money, houses, cars,
like
equity?
Stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were like, basically just made me sign a paper to say I would never work in that specific business, not even telemarketing, but like that specific business ever again.
So your sentence is how many months?
42 months.
42 months in federal prison, as well as full reimbursement for all of the money you made while you were working for that company, as well as partial reimbursement for the entire sum of total funds that were made from the company, which most of which you didn't even see. What was the total amount of money that the company was sued for?
I don't know what it was sued for, but in the end, when it finally went to the criminal side, they said the fraud was $58 million.
I mean, what percentage of that money did you see yourself?
I got paid a normal salary. Like, probably without having an actual education, I was probably making a little bit more than maybe some people my age.
And you're now responsible for paying back even more money than you even made in those 10 years.
I'm responsible with my other co-defendants of somehow, I don't really know how that's going to play out. I was just so wrapped with the fact that I was going to prison for 42 months that I was like, I'll worry about $58 million later. But somehow that $58 million sits on my head. So basically the graph that my lawyer basically posted said, hey, these owners made X millions of dollars over this period of time. And basically the graph was like, here are the owners, and like, here's Brandon. And here's like this co-defendant, here's this co-defendant.
So you're saying like the disparity of wealth was huge.
Right, and the judge pointed that out as well in sentencing. Like he understood that. It wasn't like just completely thrown out.
Yeah.
The idea of that.
But you're still held partially accountable.
Correct.
Okay. What are your biggest concerns about going to jail?
Being away from my daughter.
Who's
100%.
10 years old now.
She'll be 10 in December.
And how did she react when she found out?
It was absolutely 100% the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Because I think before going to tell her, I didn't know if she was going to completely comprehend the fact that I was like going to be gone. I think about myself at 9 years old, and I was probably a lot smarter than I probably thought I was.
Yeah.
In my mind, she's like just this little perfect little girl who doesn't know shit about shit and like has no idea what's going on in the world, but she was very aware of it. Like before I even got it out of my mouth, she could like sense it.
Yeah.
She would just started like bawling, crying. And it was very, very difficult. And it was the first time I'd ever cried in front of her. And then it rained like all September in Baltimore. Just that whole weekend, we just looked like the saddest fucking people on the planet. Like her and I just like hung out together. I feel like there wasn't a lot of talking. It was just like a lot of me looking over at her and just like tears would be running out of her eyes.
You're still going to be able to see her when you're in prison.
So yeah, we had to paint the picture for her of, you know, her coming to see me twice a month. And
oh, and also you're no longer with her mom, but you're on good terms with her.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I went to her house and it was tough. It was super tough. She's definitely like leveled out since I told her, you know, 2 months ago. I'm like a little afraid that maybe she's trying to like play it off a little bit. I know that when my active addiction started, I was like 11 or 12, and it was like, you know, I think there is like a sense of like not wanting to feel a certain way, and obviously, you know, drugs provide an escape for that. That's a whole nother story.
But you've been sober for 15 years.
I've been clean for 15 years,
Clean.
as we say in our fellowship.
And when you come out of prison, it'll be closer to 19, 18.
It'll
right?
be 18 plus. Yeah.
That's a long time.
That's a really long time. And it's, at times, it's like the only thing I got.
I mean, Nick also, my boyfriend, has almost 11 years. You guys went to a meeting tonight.
You did?
Do you have any other concerns about jail, like passing time?
Man, I've been researching jail since the day I walked out of that company that day. It was extremely stressful, and I would say that before this happened, I was in a very toxic relationship that was coming to an end. Actually, the night before the feds came and raided the place, I was up till 4 a.m. at my ex-girlfriend's house, basically like begging her to stay with me. I somehow got out of that night, and it was like, okay, cool, we're good. And I was like going to work, and I was like, all right, got that part fixed. I had like 2 or 3 hours of sleep,
Yeah.
and I went into work that day, and I was there for about 5 minutes, and it all went down. And it literally really hasn't been the same since. Fortunately for me, being in a 12-step program for so long prior, my first instinct was to just totally freak the fuck out. But my second instinct was to just kick my recovery into gear and continue to dig deep and figure out why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, and figure out what I need to do to get the help that I need as far as just getting balance back in my life. Through all of that, I've experienced my biggest mental, spiritual, and emotional growth in the last 4 years that this has been going on. And I would say that hands down for sure that has everything to do with the fact that, A, I haven't chosen to run from my feelings. I've chosen to sit with them and experience them. You know, there's like an old saying where it's like you just kind of like sit on your hands and wait for it to pass, you know, like this too shall pass, like that type of stuff. And that's kind of what happened. And unfortunately, this came in waves because information about the possibilities of, hey, am I going to get put on the civil case? And then it was like, once it went criminal, it was like, hey, am I going to get put on the criminal case? I had moments where like I thought everything was going to be okay, and then it would just be like another shitstorm. The common phrase amongst the people that I worked with was, we just worked there. That was like everyone's like, but we just worked there. Like that wasn't our company. Like we didn't get the money. We weren't handed cash on the table. Like we just worked. And everyone's response that was like out on the outside looking in was like, why would they send you to jail? You just work there. And that obviously does not matter, apparently.
I mean, I was shocked to hear your sentence, but maybe because I know you as a person. In my mind, I was like, how can a good person face this kind of charge?
Well, and it was tough because, you know, everyone's just trying to be nice. So when you talk to people, you're like, I don't know, like it seems like they're pretty serious about, it's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm sending you positive vibes. You're definitely not going to jail. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think there's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, I was one of those people telling you you
Right.
weren't going to go.
There was a lot of people. There was a lot of people that were like, didn't even question it. They like thought I was crazy for even thinking it. Just to sort of clarify, like, I don't want to like play the complete dummy. I mean, people were like, well, did you do it? And I'm like, well, I did what they said I did. I just didn't know that what I was doing was illegal. I think that's the best way that I can explain it. And I don't know if that still sounds like I'm trying to have like a cop-out. I want to take responsibility for my part in it.
Yeah.
As much as I just want to like preface that with going like, I still don't think that this is like just at all.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the end, like life doesn't care if you're happy. You have to sort of determine that for yourself. I mean, looking back on it, I had no business being there, you know, for as long as I was.
I understand that feeling. I mean, obviously, you know my past, and I have definitely done some things that I'm not proud of, or I would maybe go back and change, but at the same time, it's hard to think, like, if I didn't take this step, like, where would my life be now?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Do you think you stayed there because it was, like, comfortable and consistent?
It was about routine and comfort, absolutely. I mean, looking back on it now, it definitely was deceiving and deceptive, for sure.
I mean, I feel like you're going into your sentence with a pretty positive outlook. Do you feel like you are?
Knowing when the end will be is refreshing in itself. You know, for 4 years, I basically was what if. And the fear of that. Growing up in a city like Baltimore, you know people that have been to prison. I was able to reach out to, you know, people and sort of get the lowdown, I guess. And I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. But what I've learned from those videos, and some of them are a little cheesy, but what I've learned from it is there's no excuses. Like, you can still set goals and achieve them behind bars. And they may not be as impactful as you may like, but they can definitely set you up. Because at some point, I'm walking out of those doors, you know, and I'm going to be back, you know, probably before I know it. So for 4 years, I'm like, well, I can't commit to a woman, I can't commit to a job, I can't commit to all these things because I don't know what's going to happen with this. So at some point, that excuse is going to be gone, and all this ambition that I've been swearing that I have, and all the creative prowess that I've thought I've had over the last few years, but I've been going, well, I would be here if this wasn't going on. At some point, I'm going to be faced with, okay, dude, it's over, now what? So there's a fear of that part of it too. There's a whole other side of it. But I know that if I just if I stay in the moment, if I could just continue to put one foot in front of the other and just continuously try to do things that are going to empower me. Coming out to LA, you know, hanging out with you guys, just doing healthy things, you know, in between sentencing and me going to prison, I ran a half marathon. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try to do things. I'm going to try to achieve things before I go in.
Set goals before you go. And you still have goals for when you go in?
I have goals for when I go in. One is I'd like to write a book. I could probably harp on my days using and just the amount of people that I've lost in my life due to addiction. And then this process, and hopefully, you know, with a positive outcome at the end of all this.
I think that would be awesome. I think it could be really helpful for other people. What advice would you give someone else who's maybe facing that same fear of the unknown, or, you know, a really stressful situation and they're not quite sure what the outcome might be?
Well, first thing I would say to do is don't tuck yourself away into a corner. You know, make sure that you're talking to people. You know, make sure that you're communicating to people how you feel. Make sure you're not just sort of staying trapped in your own mind. I think that's one thing that's been extremely beneficial for me, and I've learned in the 12-step program that I attend is being able to just talk to people and tell people honestly about what's going on with me. What I'm thinking.
Communicate your feelings.
Communicate my feelings and just say, hey, this is how I feel right now. If you're fortunate like me, you surround yourself with a lot of really awesome, logical, talented, smart, positive people, and they're going to steer you in the right direction. I would say that's probably the first thing. And then the second thing is just to understand that, 9 times out of 10, depending on what your circumstances are, at some point, it's going to be over. And at some point, you're going to get to the other side of it. You just have to literally put one foot in front of the other and just continue to take action moving forward.
Today on November the 1st, you were on my YouTube channel and we posted a video that you were in, just sharing a small piece of this story, and within a couple hours hundreds of people had left comments without knowing what you were guilty of, what your situation was, what the whole story was. Hundreds of positive, uplifting, supportive messages. How did that make you feel?
It made me feel amazing. It felt good to not be judged.
I mean, I think it made you feel good because you told me you weren't gonna even look at the video, you were nervous about it going up, and then I said, hey, by the way, 400 people have already left comments that are positive, and then you were like, oh, let me look at them.
It was extremely uplifting, especially the last few days. I definitely sort of envisioned myself being in prison, not being able to talk to my daughter the way that I want to, or be able to hold her. It's just amazing that people would take their time out to write anything, let alone whole paragraphs about someone that they don't know.
Is it weird that this will be the last time that you'll see us for a while? I mean, I guess we only actually see you now once a year maybe.
Yeah. Not being able to just casually reach out to someone, especially these days with FaceTime, it's...
Yeah, you are the king of FaceTime.
I love FaceTime. I like seeing people's faces.
Do you think you're gonna miss Instagram and social media while you're in prison?
I will, but you know what though? Going to jail before, being in treatment before is way younger. You really do appreciate a lot of the small things, you know, conversations with people, just little activities that sort of like take your mind off of things, maybe reading a book, maybe going for a run. When I went and ran that half marathon, I almost always run with headphones in, and the guy I was running with was like, you know, basically suggested that I don't to sort of experience everything. And I was so glad that I didn't run with headphones in, just because there was so much support as you're running along the route. And I was really happy that I was able to like hear everything. It's just so encouraging. Here's the thing that I've learned in my short time on this planet is that like humans adapt to every situation. So like if you told somebody today that tomorrow you're going to find out you had cancer, you would probably go into a fucking state of shock. Convince yourself that there's no way you're going to be able to get through it. Like, it's just uncomprehendable, but mainly because you haven't walked through it before. But as you continue to walk through it, step by step, moment by moment, you gain more acceptance with things. I would like to say people like myself, people that have, you know, sort of been through some shitty times before, like, I have experience to say, like, this was pretty shitty, and, like, I got through it. And at one point, I never thought I was going to get through it. If you would have told me, even when the company got shut down and the feds walked in, if you would have said in 4 years you're going to be sentenced to prison, I would have fucking probably had a heart attack. But like 4 years later, I'm casually having a conversation about me getting ready to enter prison.
Yeah.
2 months ago, when the judge sentenced me to 42 months, I walked out of the courtroom stunned, and I woke up every morning for 2 weeks like completely lost. But I've managed to like, you know, do a lot of things, run a half marathon, come to LA, really enjoy myself. Like, I just feel like people underestimate themselves.
I mean, I've definitely felt like that. I've definitely felt like there were moments in my life where I wouldn't get through them, and I did.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part about this trip to LA? Besides me forcing you to use a reusable cup for your coffee every day.
So inconvenient. Nick and I eating some really awesome steaks, and you eating like an equally as expensive salad that looked like a house salad you got at Pizza Hut.
My last question, was it worth it to put shoes on for this video?
We'll have to let them be the judge.
Any final words?
Final words. Thank you so much for anyone that has commented any kind words to me, or any negative words, or any feedback or anything. And I hope to report in 2021 with a smile on my face, a little bit more jacked than I am now, a lot smarter, a lot more patient, tolerant, and hopefully in the end just like an amazing father to my daughter.